Welcome to John Carter Stories every Friday at 6 o'clock. My daughter called. Without fail. For 10 years. That phone rang like the most reliable thing in my life. Last Friday it didn't. Please subscribe and like this video and listen to my story till the end. And let me know which city you're listening from. That way, I can see how far my story has traveled. My name is Robert Hayes. I'm 63 years old, a retired electrician from the rolling hills of rural Tennessee, where neighbors still wave from their porches and people know your name at the grocery store. For 40 years, I made my living reading wires, tracing faults, fixing what was broken. You'd think a man like me would know how to spot something wrong before it becomes a disaster. You'd think. But nothing in 40 years of electrical work prepared me for the Friday that phone stayed silent. My daughter's name was Claire, my only child. She was 34 years old, a registered nurse at Regional Medical Center, 2.5 hours north of my house. Smart, warm, funny in the way that catches you off guard. She had this laugh, this big, full laugh that started somewhere deep in her chest and filled whatever room she was in. Ha ha ha! I can still hear it right now. Sitting here telling you this story. Every Friday at 6, she'd call on my old landline. Yeah, I still have a landline. Don't judge me. On the other end would be Claire, calling from her place up north. Hey, Dad, she'd say. And I could hear the smile in her voice. The same smile she'd had since she was 8 years old, standing in my workshop asking why this wire went here and that one went there. Because everything connects, sweetheart, I'd tell her. You just have to trace it back to the source. She became a nurse instead of an electrician. Said she wanted to help people in a different way. I couldn't argue with that. Claire had a gift for caring, for making people feel safe when they were at their most vulnerable. That's what good nurses do. That's what she did. Our Friday calls lasted an hour, sometimes more. She'd tell me about her long shifts, the hard ones, the ones that made her question everything until a patient smiled and said thank you. I'd tell her about the garden, the leaky faucet I'd finally fixed, how Mrs. Patterson down the street still brought casseroles even though I kept telling her I cooked just fine. Then little Sophie would grab the phone. My granddaughter, 10 years old, sharp as a whip, full of questions about absolutely everything. Grandpa, when can I come visit? This weekend, sweetheart, if your mom says okay. She visited most weekends. Loved getting her hands greasy in the garage, learning how things worked, just like her mother used to. Those Friday calls weren't just phone calls. They were the rhythm of my entire life. Until last Friday, I was sitting at my kitchen table, coffee cooling in my favorite mug, the one Claire gave me 15 years ago. World's best dad printed on the side. The clock read 5:58. 2 minutes. The old rotary phone sat silent on the wall mount. Cream-colored plastic. Same phone I'd had since the 90s. Still worked perfectly. 6 o'clock came. 6:05, 6:15. I picked up the receiver, heard the dial tone, set it back down. Nothing wrong with the line. So I dialed Claire's number, the one I'd memorized the day she moved into her own place 11 years ago. It rang and rang and rang. Then her voicemail. Hi, you've reached Claire. I can't come to the phone right now, but leave a message and I'll call you back. Hey, sweetheart, it's Dad. Just checking in since I didn't hear from you. Give me a call when you get a chance. I hung up, told myself she was busy. Late shift, probably. She worked hard. Sometimes pulled 12-hour days when the hospital was short-staffed. She'd call back soon. Except she always called on Fridays. Always. Even when she was exhausted. Even when Sophie was sick. Even during that terrible flu season 3 years ago when she'd been working doubles for 2 straight weeks. Something felt wrong. That tingling at the base of your skull, you know the one? The feeling that tells you there's a short somewhere in the system even when everything looks perfectly fine on the surface. I tried calling again at 7. Voicemail. 8 o'clock. Voicemail. 9 o'clock. Straight to voicemail. Phone was off. I thought about Marcus then. My son-in-law. Married to Claire for 11 years. Father to Sophie. Financial advisor with a downtown office. Nice enough on the surface, polite, always smiled at family gatherings. But lately, something about him had felt off. The last time I'd seen him, 3 weeks back when Sophie visited for the weekend, I'd asked about work, making conversation. He'd gotten twitchy, changed the subject fast. His eyes didn't quite meet mine when he answered. I pushed the thought away. Marcus was fine. Claire was fine. Probably just a quiet evening. Movie night, maybe. 10 o'clock. Voicemail. 11. Voicemail. By midnight, I called 7 times. 7 calls. 7 voicemails. No answer. My coffee had gone cold hours ago. The house felt too quiet. That tingling at the base of my neck had turned into something heavier, something sitting in my chest like a stone. I stood at my kitchen window, staring at the empty street. The streetlights cast orange pools on the pavement. Somewhere 2.5 hours north, my daughter wasn't answering her phone. My granddaughter wasn't asking when she could visit next. Everything connects. I'd told Claire when she was 8. You just have to trace it back to the source. But what do you do when the connection goes completely dead? I set the phone in its cradle one last time. Tomorrow, I told myself, I'd call again first thing tomorrow morning. And if she didn't answer, I'd figure something out. But standing there at midnight in my kitchen, staring at that silent phone, I already knew something was terribly wrong. I could feel it the way I'd felt faulty wiring for 40 years. I just didn't know yet that I was already 6 days too late. Engagement break. If you ever had that gut feeling that something was wrong with someone you love, drop a 1 in the comments right now. Keep watching, because what I found at that house will change the way you think about the people closest to you. Saturday morning brought no answers, only more questions twisting in my gut. I didn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table all night, watching the clock crawl past 1, 2, 3 in the morning. By the time gray light filtered through the curtains, I'd brewed my 3rd pot of coffee. At 7:30, I called Regional Medical Center. The receptionist answered with practiced cheerfulness. Regional Medical. How may I direct your call? Nursing station, please. I'm trying to reach Claire Hayes. A short hold. Then a different voice, older, tired, 4th floor nursing. Hi, I'm looking for Claire Hayes. I'm her father. I haven't been able to reach her. Claire. The woman's tone shifted. Concerned now. She called in sick Monday morning. Haven't seen her since. Is everything all right? The coffee in my stomach turned to lead. Sick since Monday. She sounded terrible. The woman continued. Said she'd be back when she felt better. I thanked her and hung up. My hand was shaking. Claire never missed work. Not in 12 years of nursing. She'd show up with a cold, the flu, even a twisted ankle she could barely walk on. People need me, Dad. She'd say, I can't just not show up. She'd been gone an entire week. I dialed Marcus's number before I could stop myself. Robert. Hey, everything okay? That's what I'm trying to figure out. I kept my tone steady. I can't reach Claire. Her phone's going straight to voicemail. What's going on? A pause. Just a fraction too long. Oh, yeah. I should have called you. Claire took Sophie on a little trip. They needed some space. Space? What trip? Where did they go? Just out of town. Mother-daughter time. They'll be back in a few days. Put Sophie on the phone. They're not here right now. Out exploring. I said slowly. A trip? Like her job. The one she hasn't shown up to since Monday. Another pause. Longer this time. Yeah, she was burned out. Needed time away from the hospital. She's fine, I promise. The way he said it. Like he'd rehearsed it. Set off every alarm in my head. Marcus. If something's wrong. Nothing's wrong, really. I'll have her call you. He hung up. I stood in my kitchen, phone still in my hand. This felt like lying. Marcus had always been measured, careful. Financial advisors had project stability. But this felt different. I called Diana Wells next. Claire's colleague and close friend. She answered on the second ring. Mr. Hayes, is everything okay? That's what I'm trying to find out. Have you heard from Claire? No. Diana sounded genuinely worried. I called her Wednesday, Thursday, yesterday. No answer. I even drove by Thursday evening. Lights were off. She hesitated. I'm really worried about her. You and me both. After we hung up, I opened my laptop and pulled up Facebook. Claire's last post was 2 weeks ago. A photo of Sophie's school art project. Nothing for 3 weeks before that. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe she really did need a break. Maybe I was just the overprotective father who couldn't let go. Except 3 weeks ago when Sophie spent the weekend with me. I called Marcus about something, asked if he was still at the business conference he'd mentioned. He'd said yes, absolutely, just wrapping up meetings. And Sophie had casually mentioned that Daddy had been home all weekend watching football and ordering pizza. I hadn't pushed it. Figured maybe Sophie got her days mixed up. But now, remembering that same smooth certainty in his voice. 40 years as an electrician teaches you to trust your instincts. When something feels wrong, even if every wire looks perfect, even if the meter says everything's fine, you keep looking. I checked the clock. 8:45 in the morning. 2.5 hours to Claire's house. What if I was wrong? What if I showed up and she was perfectly fine and I'd made a fool of myself? Then I'd be a fool. I could live with that. What I couldn't live with was sitting here while that wrongness kept building inside me like pressure behind a dam. I went upstairs and threw clothes into an overnight bag, medications, phone charger, the spare key Claire had given me years ago. Just in case, Dad, she'd said, smiling, for emergencies. This felt like an emergency. Don't you dare click away. In part 2, I'm going to tell you what I found in that house, what was behind that closet door, and why what I discovered left me shaking on the floor. This story is only getting started. I set my alarm for 5 in the morning, but never actually slept. I just lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, thinking about circuits and connections, how everything ties back to a source, and what happens when the current stops flowing. The sunrise painted the Tennessee hills in amber and rose as my truck hummed along the empty highway at 5:30 in the morning. The coffee in my thermos had already gone cold, but I kept sipping it anyway. Anything to steady my hands on the wheel. I'd made this drive hundreds of times. Every major holiday, every birthday, whenever Claire needed help around the house that Marcus couldn't or wouldn't fix. But this morning, the familiar route felt completely different. The white lines blurred together, and my mind kept drifting to memories I hadn't visited in years. Claire at 8 years old, her small hands holding wires while I stripped insulation in the kitchen. Daddy, why does this wire go here? Because everything's connected. Sweetheart, I told her. You can't see electricity, but you can feel when something's wrong. A warning? She asked. Maybe I had given her that gift. Maybe she'd known something was wrong for a long time. My phone buzzed. I grabbed it, hope flaring for just a second. But it wasn't Claire. Just a reminder I'd set myself. I called Marcus again anyway. 4 rings, then voicemail. Marcus, it's Robert. I'm on my way to the house. If Claire and Sophie are there, have her call me immediately. If they're still on this supposed trip, I need proof. A photo, a video call, something. I'll be there in less than an hour. I hung up. The highway stretched on. My thoughts circled back to the last few months. Marcus had been coming home later and later. Claire had mentioned it during our Friday calls, but always made excuses. He's busy with work, she'd say. Her voice always sounded tight, like a wire pulled too far. 3 weeks ago, I'd driven down for Sophie's birthday. We'd been on the porch steps eating ice cream when Sophie asked something that still tightened my chest even now. Grandpa, what do you do when someone lies to you? I looked at her serious little face. Chocolate smeared on her chin. Why do you ask, honey? She shrugged, suddenly very interested in her shoelaces. Just wondering. I should have pressed her. I let it go, assuming it was kid drama, a classmate fibbing about something. How I wish I had asked more questions that day. The hills flattened as I neared the suburbs. Neat rows of identical houses. White siding, small yards, 2-car garages. This was where Claire had built her life, where Sophie learned to ride a bike and started 4th grade. I turned onto Maplewood Drive and slowed. Number 47. The house looked quiet. Too quiet. No car in the driveway. No lights in the windows. The lawn needed mowing, and a package sat on the porch steps, its cardboard corners darkened by moisture. I pulled over across the street and killed the engine, gripped the steering wheel, and stared at my daughter's house. I crossed that quiet street like a man walking toward his own judgment. Marcus's silver sedan wasn't in the driveway. Just an empty concrete slab with an oil stain in the center. Every curtain was drawn tight. The morning sun hit the windows at an angle that made them look like closed eyes. I climbed the porch steps. A package sat by the door, delivery date from 5 days ago. I knocked, 3 solid raps that echoed through the neighborhood. Nothing. I knocked again, harder. Claire, Sophie. My voice sounded too loud in the quiet street. A dog barked somewhere down the road. Still nothing. I pressed my ear against the door. No footsteps. No television. No sound at all except the faint hum of a refrigerator motor running inside. That's when I remembered. 2 summers ago, Claire had locked herself out taking trash to the curb. I'd driven down to help her, spent 20 minutes trying to jimmy the door before she laughed and showed me her secret. Dad, I'm a nurse. I work odd hours. I needed a backup plan. She'd led me to a decorative rock near the front flower bed, one of those hollow fake stones. Don't tell Marcus, she'd said, winking. He thinks it's tacky, but it makes me feel safer. I jumped off the porch and scanned the flower bed. There, partially hidden under a wilting azalea bush, sat a gray plastic rock that didn't quite match the others. The key fell into my palm. My hand shook as I slid it into the lock. The deadbolt clicked open with sound that felt too final, like crossing a line I couldn't uncross. I pushed the door open. The smell hit me first. Not anything obvious. No decay. Just the stale air of a house that had been closed up too long. Like someone had simply turned off everything and left. I stepped inside. The living room looked almost normal. Almost. But my electricians, I caught what was wrong immediately. The coffee table sat at a slight angle, like someone had shoved it aside and tried to put back. The couch cushions were arranged too perfectly. A throw pillow lay on the floor behind the armchair, as if it had been kicked there and forgotten. The family photos on the mantel had been rearranged or bumped. The carpet showed vacuum lines, but they ran in odd overlapping directions, like someone had cleaned in a hurry without thinking. Claire? I called out. My voice sounded strange in the empty house. Sophie? No answer. I walked into the kitchen. It was spotless. Too spotless. The counters gleamed. The sink shone. Even the stovetop looked freshly scrubbed. But when I opened the refrigerator, I found only beer bottles, Chinese takeout containers, and a half-empty gallon of milk expired 4 days ago. Nothing a 10-year-old would eat. No juice boxes, no string cheese, no leftovers in containers with child's name on them. I checked the dish towel hanging on the oven handle. It was damp, recently used. That's when I heard it, a soft sound from upstairs. So faint I almost thought I'd imagined it, a scratching, like fingernails against wood. My heart hammered against my ribs. I moved to the stairs, my hand gripping the banister. The second floor was dark, all bedroom doors closed. The scratching came again, barely audible, from Sophie's room. I took the stairs 2 at a time, my boots pounding on the carpet. When I reached the landing, I grabbed the doorknob to Sophie's room and threw it open. The room looked untouched. Pink curtains filtered sunlight into a rosy glow. Stuffed animals lined the shelves in perfect rows. A backpack sat in the corner, school folders visible through the open zipper. Everything looked normal, lived in, loved, except for the sound. Scratch, scratch, pause, scratch, coming from the closet. I crossed the room in 3 steps and yanked open the closet door. There, curled up behind a pile of winter coats, was Sophie, my granddaughter. Her lips were cracked and bleeding. Her skin was pale, except for the fevered flush on her cheeks. Her eyes were glassy and unfocused, barely registering my presence. Her small hands clutched a stuffed rabbit to her chest. The same faded blue rabbit Claire had bought her 7 years ago. Its fur was matted with tears and sweat. "Grandpa," she whispered, her voice like dry leaves scraping against pavement. I dropped to my knees and gathered her into my arms. She weighed nothing, just bones and burning skin. When I pressed my hand to her forehead, the heat scared me deeply. Her breathing came in shallow gasps. "I've got you, sweetheart. I've got you." She looked up at me, and for a moment I saw recognition in her eyes. Real recognition. "Grandpa." I heard Mama scream, and then Everything went quiet. Engagement break. If you're still watching this, please drop a heart in the comments right now. This little girl survived something no child should ever have to go through. Stay with me, because what she tells me next will absolutely break your heart. My hand shook as I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? I need an ambulance. I kept my voice as steady as I could. 47 Maplewood Drive. My granddaughter. She's 10 years old. Severe dehydration, high fever. She's been alone for... My voice caught. Please hurry. The ambulance ride to Regional Children's Hospital took 20 minutes. It felt like 20 hours. Sophie drifted in and out of consciousness, her small hand gripping mine like I was the only solid thing left in her world. Severe dehydration, the paramedic said, adjusting the oxygen mask over Sophie's face. Malnutrition. This child has been alone for days. I didn't correct him. Didn't say it had been 7 days. I just held my granddaughter's hand and watched her chest rise and fall. In the ER, doctors and nurses surrounded Sophie the moment we arrived. Someone tried to pull me back, but I wouldn't let go of her hand. Sir, we need space. I'm not leaving her. After about 40 minutes, they moved Sophie to a private room. The 4 drip continued, steady and rhythmic. Monitors beeped softly. Her fever had started to come down. I pulled a chair close to her bed and sat down. My whole body ached from the drive, from the fear, from holding myself together when everything inside me wanted to break. 7 days. My 10-year-old granddaughter had survived 7 days alone. Sophie stirred, her eyes opening slowly, clearer and more focused now. She looked at me and I saw real recognition. Grandpa, I'm here, sweetheart. I squeezed her hand gently. You're safe now. She was quiet for a moment, her gaze drifting to the stuffed rabbit they'd let her keep on the bedside table. Mama taught me, she said finally, in case something bad happened. My throat tightened. What did she teach you? Sophie's eyes filled with tears. Months ago, maybe since summer, Mama would come into my room at night and tell me things. She said if I ever heard loud arguing, really loud, scary arguing, I should go straight to my closet and hide. She said not to come out until you call my name or the police came. Something cold settled deep in my chest. Claire had known. She had known she was in danger and had prepared her daughter, like someone laying out an escape route. That Saturday night, Sophie continued, I was reading in bed. Then I heard them. Marcus was yelling. Mama was crying. It got so loud. She swallowed hard. I did what Mama said. I went to my closet and closed the door. You did exactly right. I told her, my voice breaking. Mama showed me where she hid snacks. Sophie said, in my toy box, under stuffed animals. Crackers and granola bars. She said it was our secret emergency kit. She told me to eat just a little bit every day if I ever had to hide. The image of Claire carefully hiding food for her daughter, planning for the worst, made my chest physically ache. What about water? I asked. At night, when the house got really quiet, I would sneak out and go to the bathroom. I drank from the sink and filled my water bottle. Then I'd go back to the closet before it got light outside. She looked down at her hands. I was so scared every time. But Mama said being brave means doing scary things when you have to. Oh, Claire, what had you been living through? Why didn't you try to leave? I asked gently, or call for help. Sophie's answer was simple and absolutely devastating. Mama said to wait for you. She said you'd come. She said you always keep your promises, and you promised to call every Friday. So if you didn't call, you'd come looking. She told me to wait for you. Grandpa. Nobody else. The weight of that trust. The weight of Claire's faith in me. The weight of this little girl's patience. It nearly broke me completely. My daughter had spent the last months of her life teaching her child how to survive without her. She'd hidden food, rehearsed instructions, made plans for a future where she wouldn't be there. She'd known Marcus was dangerous, and she'd done everything she could to protect Sophie. But she hadn't been able to save herself. You did so good. Sweetheart, I whispered, taking Sophie's hand again. Your mama would be so proud of you. Sophie's eyes slowly closed, exhaustion finally winning. Her breathing deepened. Within minutes, she was asleep. I sat there in the dim hospital room, watching her chest rise and fall, listening to the monitors beep their quiet reassurance. She was alive. Against all odds, my granddaughter was alive. A soft knock at the door. Detective James Rivera stood in the doorway, his expression serious. "Mr. Hayes, can we talk in the hall?" I glanced at Sophie one last time, then stood and followed him out. Through the window of the room, I could see her sleeping peacefully, still clutching that worn blue rabbit. She was alive because Claire had taught her how to hide, how to wait, how to survive. And I finally said the words I've been avoiding since I found that empty house. My daughter is dead, isn't she? Marcus did this. Part 3 is coming, and you are not ready for what the detective shows me next. The forensic photos, the financial records, and the shocking reason Marcus believed he could get away with it. Don't go anywhere. 5 weeks. 5 weeks of investigation, dead ends, and sleepless nights. 5 weeks of Sophie asking when we could have a funeral for her mother. 5 weeks until Detective Rivera's call finally came. "Paul, we found her." An anonymous tip from a storage facility manager on the edge of town. A strange smell from Unit 42. When police arrived with a warrant, they found what we'd been dreading. I had to drive to the county medical examiner's office to identify the body. My hands shook on the steering wheel the entire way. The same highway I'd driven that Sunday morning 5 weeks ago, full of worry, still hoping I was wrong. Now I knew I'd been right. I'd just been too late. Detective Rivera waited for me in the parking lot, his face grave. "You don't have to do this," he said as we walked toward the entrance. "We have dental records. DNA confirmation is already underway." I told him. I need to see her. Inside, a medical examiner in blue scrubs met us in the hallway. She was perhaps 50, with kind eyes and a professional manner built from years of delivering the worst news imaginable. "Mr. Hayes," she said gently, "I'm Dr. Patricia Daniels. I'll be with you the entire time." She led us to a small viewing room. In the center sat a table covered by a white sheet. "Are you ready?" I wasn't, would never be, but I nodded. She pulled back the sheet, folding it carefully at Claire's shoulders. My daughter looked like she was sleeping. Her face was peaceful, almost serene. Her dark hair had been brushed back from her forehead. She looked younger than 34. She looked like the girl who used to help me wire light fixtures and ask endless questions about how electricity worked, except for the marks around her neck. I couldn't look away from them. I could see she fought, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. The bruises on her arms. Dr. Daniels nodded quietly. "Defensive wounds. Your daughter fought very hard, Mr. Hayes." I reached out slowly and touched Claire's hand. It was cold, so cold. This was the same hand that had gripped my finger when she was a baby. The same hand I'd held teaching her to ride a bike. The same hand she'd reached out to me with at her nursing school graduation. "I'm sorry, sweetheart," I whispered. "I should have protected you. I should have trusted my instincts about Marcus sooner. I should have gotten you out of there." Detective Rivera placed a hand on my shoulder, but said nothing. "The official cause of death is asphyxiation," Dr. Daniels continued gently, "based on body temperature at time of discovery. Time of death was Saturday evening, approximately 10:30 p.m. Saturday evening, the night Sophie had hidden in her closet and listened to her mother die. We found DNA evidence under her fingernails. It matches Marcus Webb. Good, I thought. Good. She'd left evidence. She'd marked the man who killed her. I leaned down and kissed my daughter's forehead one last time. "He will pay," I whispered against her cold skin. "I promise you, Claire. He will spend the rest of his life paying for what he did to you." 2 weeks later, I was back at the police station when Detective Rivera spread financial documents across a conference table. "I want to show you the motive," he said. "All of it." He slid the first document across. A life insurance policy, $500,000. Claire took it out when Sophie was born. Standard term policy. She never changed the beneficiary. I stared at Marcus Webb's name listed as sole beneficiary. "He would have gotten all of it," I said quietly, "if she died from natural causes or an accident." "Yes." Rivera handed me another stack. But here's where it gets darker. Marcus had serious debt. He spread out credit reports and bank statements. Total debt $385,000. $250,000 lost in a fraudulent investment scheme. The rest, casino gambling, max credit cards, personal loans. He was completely drowning. Rivera turned his tablet toward me. Browser history from Marcus's laptop. 3 weeks before Claire died. He searched. How long does life insurance pay out after death? My hands curled into fists. He planned it. He looked at my daughter and saw $500,000. There's more, Rivera said. He passed me a handwritten statement from a neighbor across the street, Mrs. Dorothy Ellison, 70 years old, 2 doors down. She saw a silver SUV parked outside Claire's house Saturday night around 10 o'clock. Thought it was family visiting. The neighbor directly across had a security camera. We pulled the footage. Grainy video filled the screen. 2 vehicles in the driveway. Marcus's black sedan and a silver SUV. Timestamp 9:45 p.m. arrival. They left together at 11:30. An hour after Claire died. An hour spent cleaning, moving her body, covering their tracks. We traced the SUV registration. Rivera said, Amanda Cole, 29 years old, Marcus's ex from years ago. They broke up when he married Claire, but they reconnected recently. Over 200 calls between them in the last 3 months. She helped him, I said. She had reason to, Rivera replied. Amanda Cole has gambling debts too, around $75,000. Together they were completely buried. That insurance policy looked like a way out for both of them. I thought of Sophie's drawing from her hospital interview. 3 stick figures. The woman at the door. The woman who said we have to finish this. Amanda Cole had been there. She had helped murder my daughter. There's one more piece, Rivera said quietly. He slid a statement across. Diana Wells, Claire's colleague and friend. Claire came to Diana 2 weeks before she died. Marcus had asked her to increase the life insurance policy to $750,000. Claire refused. She told Diana she was scared. The words hit like a physical blow. She knew I whispered. Claire knew something was coming. She did. And when she refused to increase the policy and started pulling away, Marcus couldn't risk losing control. If she changed the beneficiary or filed for divorce, everything he was counting on disappeared. I pressed my hands over my eyes. My daughter had been afraid. She had seen the danger. She'd tried to prepare Sophie. She'd tried to protect what she loved. And I hadn't pushed harder, hadn't insisted she leave, hadn't trusted that tight sound in her voice during our Friday calls. I looked down at the table. The insurance policy, the debt statements, the browser history, the security footage stills. A trail of greed and desperation, mapped out in black ink and pixels. Marcus hadn't acted in rage. He had calculated. He had planned. He had weighed the cost against the payout. $500,000. That was what he decided Claire's life was worth. I need you to drop a comment right now if you are still with me. Just one word. Justice. Let me see who's here. This story is not over, and what happens in that courtroom is going to shake you. Finding Amanda Cole took 3 weeks. She'd been running. Burner phones, roadside motels, cash payments, dyed hair. She jumped at every siren. The breakthrough came from her own younger sister, Melissa Cole, 25 years old. Melissa called the tip line, her voice shaking. I love my sister, she told the detective who answered, but I can't live with what she did. A woman is dead. A little girl almost died. Amanda had called Melissa from a burner phone the night before, crying, panicking, saying things that made Melissa understand how deep the trouble went. She told me she was scared. Melissa said during her interview, she said Marcus had lied to her, that she didn't know what they were really doing until it was too late. She kept saying, I didn't know. Rivera had listened carefully. Your sister made a terrible mistake, he told Melissa gently, but she's not the architect of this. If she's willing to tell the truth, she deserves that chance. The arrest happened at dawn at a budget motel outside Cincinnati, room 14. Amanda tried to run, made it to the parking lot before 3 officers caught her. At the police station, Amanda broke down completely. Marcus promised we'd be together. She'd screamed as they cuffed her. He said Claire was keeping his money, trapping him. He lied to me about everything. Did Marcus tell you about the life insurance policy? Rivera had asked. Amanda had gone quiet. Then, in a small voice, not at first, not until after they'd killed my daughter. 2 days after Amanda's arrest, her lawyer approached the district attorney with an offer. My client wants to cooperate. She has information about the planning, the execution, everything that happened that night. She'll testify against Marcus in exchange for a reduced sentence. That evening, Rivera called me home while I was making dinner for Sophie. The offer is second-degree murder instead of first. 25 years instead of life without parole. My hand tightened on the phone. How much time would she actually serve? 25 years. She'd be 54 when she got out. I closed my eyes. 25 years. Claire would have been 59. Would have watched Sophie graduate high school, college. Would have had an entire lifetime Amanda had stolen from her. It's not enough, I said. Not for what she did. I know, Rivera said quietly. But without her testimony, Marcus might walk free. His lawyer is one of the best in the state. He'll attack every piece of evidence. He'll say the financial motive is circumstantial. He'll claim Sophie is too young and too traumatized to be reliable. He'll create reasonable doubt. With Amanda's testimony, we have an eyewitness who was there, who can describe exactly how Marcus planned it, what he said, what he did. I sat down at the kitchen table. Through the doorway, I could see Sophie in the living room, coloring with Emma, Diana's daughter, my granddaughter who'd survived 7 days in a closet because she trusted me to come. What happens if I say no? The district attorney can offer the deal without your approval. But you want to know how you feel. This is your daughter. I stare at my hands. Hands that had held Claire when she was born. Hands that had found Sophie in that closet. Hands that were empty now because my daughter was gone. Tell the DA I agreed to the deal, I said finally, but make sure Amanda knows something. 25 years is mercy. The kind of mercy she didn't give my daughter. Part 4 is where everything comes to a head. The trial. The moment Sophie takes a witness stand and says something so powerful the entire courtroom goes completely silent. You need to see this through to the end. 12 months. 1 full year since Marcus ended my daughter's life. 365 days of fighting through a legal system that sometimes felt designed to protect the guilty. And now, finally, we stood at the moment where truth would have its voice. I walked into the courthouse on that cold November morning with Diana beside me. Sophie had stayed home with Emma. We decided she didn't need to see any of this until it was her turn to testify. Inside the courtroom, the jury had already been selected. 7 women, 5 men, ranging from their 20s to their 60s. I'd studied each of their faces during selection, trying to read who they were, what they believed. Marcus sat at the defense table in an expensive Navy suit, his hair neatly trimmed, looking for all the world like an innocent man wrongly accused. All rise, the bailiff called. Judge Helen Morrison entered, sharp-eyed and composed. The prosecution may give its opening statement. District Attorney Carol Bennett stood and walked to the jury box, looking at each juror before she spoke. This is a case about greed. She began, her voice clear and strong, about a man who looked at his wife and saw only a paycheck. $500,000. That's the price Marcus Webb believed Claire Hayes' life was worth. She paused, letting that sink in. Over the next several days, you'll hear testimony about Marcus Webb's debts. $385,000 owed to casinos, to the victims of a fraudulent investment scheme he helped run, to loan sharks and credit card companies. You'll hear about how he planned this crime for weeks, renting a storage unit under a fake name, buying cleaning supplies, rehearsing his story. Carol's voice softened, but you'll also hear from a 10-year-old girl named Sophie, a child who survived 7 days alone in a closet because her mother taught her how to hide, a mother who knew she was in danger but couldn't escape in time. Several of the female jurors had already started to tear up. I watched their faces carefully. The evidence will show that Marcus Webb murdered his wife for insurance money, and then he left his daughter to die because checking on her would have been inconvenient. Listen to the evidence. Look at the facts. And when you do, you'll see exactly what Marcus Webb is. A man who values money more than human life. She sat down. The courtroom was silent. Defense attorney Gerald Hamlin stood. Where Carol had been passionate, He was smooth and likable. Marcus Webb is not a saint. He made mistakes. He got into debt. He made poor financial decisions. But he is not the cold-blooded killer the prosecution wants you to believe. He walked toward the jury, hands open in a gesture of honesty. The real villain in this case is Amanda Cole, a manipulative woman who rekindled an old romance with Marcus, convinced him to help her, and took matters into her own hands. Marcus Webb was in another room when Claire died. He didn't know what Amanda was doing until it was too late. I felt my jaw clench. All lies. The first day brought forensic testimony about the blood evidence found in Claire's living room. The luminol photos were displayed on screens throughout the courtroom. Even cleaned, the room had glowed with traces of what had happened there. DNA was recovered from under the victim's fingernails. The forensic expert testified. It matched Marcus Webb, meaning she scratched him during a physical struggle. Then came Dorothy Ellison, the neighbor, 73 years old, sharp as ever, wearing a floral dress and pearls. I saw a silver SUV parked outside the Hayes house that Saturday night. She testified. Around 10 o'clock. I just finished watching my television program. Hamlin tried to shake her on cross-examination. Mrs. Ellison, it was dark and raining. Are you sure? Young man, Mrs. Ellison fixed it with a look that could have frozen water. I'm 73, not senile. I know exactly what I saw. Several jurors smiled. Then came Jacob, the 16-year-old from across the street. He looked nervous, but his testimony was clear. I was in my room around 11 that night, he said. I looked out my window and saw two people carrying something large wrapped in a tarp, a man and a woman, loading it into the SUV. What were they doing? Carol asked. They looked suspicious, like they were trying not to be seen. They were both struggling because it looked heavy. The second day brought Diana Wells to the stand, dabbing at her eyes with tissue. Claire came to me 2 weeks before she died. Diana said, she told me Marcus was demanding she increase her life insurance to $750,000. She refused. She was afraid of him. Did you see any signs of physical abuse? Yes. I saw bruises on her arm. When I asked, she said she'd fallen. But I knew better. I should have done more to help her. She looked down. I will never forgive myself for not doing more. Then came text messages Claire had sent to a close friend, Courtney Morris. I need to get Sophie and me out safely. Another said, I'm planning to file for divorce, but I'm scared of what Marcus will do. Then Dr. Joyce Hamilton, who had trained Claire when she first started nursing, took the stand, her voice thick with emotion. I trained that girl. I loved her like a daughter. And over the last 6 months, I watched her become withdrawn, quiet, not herself. Did you ever speak with her about it? Once. I asked her if everything was all right at home. She looked at me and said, Dr. Hamilton, please pray for me. I watched the jury throughout all of it. Some were increasingly skeptical of Marcus's innocent appearance. Others still seemed to be weighing Hamlin's story about manipulation and victimhood. That night, I held Sophie as she cried. I don't want to see him. Grandpa. She sobbed into my shoulder. I know, sweetheart. I stroked her hair. But your mama taught you to be brave. Tomorrow we need that bravery one more time. For her. Trial day 3. The courtroom was more crowded than before. Word spread that a 10-year-old child would testify against her own father. Sophie arrived wearing a simple blue dress, her hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. The stuffed bunny sat tucked in my jacket pocket, just in case. She looked so small standing in that hallway. But I'd learned something over the past year. Small doesn't mean weak. In the witness preparation room, Dr. Samantha Ford, the child psychologist who'd worked with Sophie from the beginning, knelt beside her. Remember what we talked about, she said gently. Just tell the truth. If you get scared, look at your grandfather. He'll be right there. Judge Morrison had offered a privacy screen to block Marcus's view of Sophie while she testified. Many courts use them for child witnesses. Sophie had refused. No screen, she'd said, her voice small but absolutely firm. I want to look at him. When it was time, the court clerk called Sophie's name. She walked into that courtroom with her head high, though I could see her hands trembling slightly. The clerk helped her onto the witness stand. She was so small she needed a footstool to reach the microphone. Do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Sophie's voice was barely above a whisper. I promise. The courtroom fell completely silent. Carol Bennett approached slowly, her expression warm and gentle. Hi, Sophie. Can you tell the jury where you were on Saturday, November 18th of last year? In my room, Sophie said. Then I heard yelling downstairs. What did you hear? My dad and a woman. They were yelling at my mom really loud, arguing about money. What did your mother say? Mom kept saying no, that she wouldn't help them anymore. What happened next? Sophie's voice got smaller. Mom had told me before that if I ever heard loud arguing, I should hide in my closet and not come out until she called me. So I did that. What did you hear from inside the closet? Scary sounds. Sophie's hands gripped the edge of the witness box, like things breaking. And Mom was crying. She was begging them to stop. Several jurors were already crying. I felt tears streaming down my own face and didn't move to wipe them. Did your mother stop making sounds? Amelia nodded, tears spilling. Yes. After my dad said I'm sorry, everything went quiet. I glanced at Marcus. His jaw was clenched so tight, I thought it might snap. How long were you in that closet? Carol asked gently. Sophie's voice broke. 7 days. I waited for Mom to call me out like she promised, but she never did. The courtroom erupted in quiet sobs. Even some of the male jurors were wiping their eyes. Who finally found you? Sophie looked directly at me. My grandpa. He never gave up. Throughout her testimony, Marcus had been trying to stare at Sophie. Judge Morrison noticed immediately. Mr. Webb, face forward. Do not look at the witness. When Carol finished, Gerald Hamlin stood for cross-examination. He approached carefully, his voice gentle. Sophie, isn't it possible you heard things wrong? It was nighttime. You were scared. I know my dad's voice, Sophie interrupted, her voice suddenly strong. And I know when he's lying. Hamlin looked startled. Why would you say that? Because he lied to my grandpa. He said Mom and I went on a trip. But Mom was gone, and I was in the closet. Hamlin tried a few more questions, but Sophie didn't waver. Finally, he gave up. No further questions. Engagement break. Please comment the word brave right now if you believe Sophie is one of the strongest people you've ever heard of, because what she does next stopped that entire courtroom cold. As Sophie was helped down from the stand, she passed Marcus's table. She stopped. Everyone in that courtroom held their breath. She looked directly at Marcus, her small face completely composed. Mom forgave you, she said, her voice clear in the absolute silence of that room. But I don't. Then she continued walking, her hand in Dr. Ford's, and left the courtroom. The silence was stunning. Absolute. I watched the jury. Every single one of them was looking at Marcus differently now. Whatever sympathy Hamlin had managed to build, whatever doubt he'd tried to plant, had shattered completely in that moment. His own daughter had looked him in the eyes with a clarity no adult witness could match. The next day, Amanda Cole took the witness stand in her orange prison jumpsuit. She looked thinner, haunted. Her dyed hair had grown out, showing the roots. Her hands trembled. She was sworn in. The jury already knew she'd pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. Some looked at her with open disgust. Carol Bennett established the timeline carefully. Miss Cole, how did you reconnect with Marcus Webb? We met at a casino. Amanda said, her voice barely audible, about 10 weeks before Claire died. Marcus was charming. He said his marriage was over, that he still had feelings for me. When did the planning begin? About 8 weeks before. Marcus said he needed my help. He said Claire was keeping his money, trapping him. He asked if I'd help him convince her to cooperate. What was the actual plan? Amanda swallowed hard. Marcus said we'd make it look like she ran away. We'd split the insurance money and start over somewhere new. Tell us what happened on Saturday night. Amanda took a shaky breath. We arrived at the house around 9:45. Marcus was very angry. He'd found out Claire had discovered all of his debts. When we went inside, Marcus demanded she sign financial power of attorney documents. She refused, said she was done, that she was filing for divorce. What happened then? Marcus lost it completely. Amanda's voice dropped to almost nothing. He grabbed her. She tried to fight back. I helped hold her while she struggled. The courtroom fell into horrified silence. What happened after Claire died? We wrapped her in a tarp, Amanda said, tears streaming. Started carrying her to my SUV. That's when I heard a noise from upstairs. I asked Marcus, what about Sophie? Is she home? Carol's voice was steady. And what did Marcus say? Amanda's voice broke completely. He said, she's probably at a sleepover. And even if she's here, by the time anyone finds anything, we'll be long gone with the money. Several jurors gasped. A woman covered her mouth in horror. Marcus had heard something upstairs. He had known someone might be there, and he had chosen to leave anyway. When Marcus took the stand to testify in his own defense, he was smooth and coached and confident. But Carol Bennett systematically dismantled every word. Your wife's body was found in the storage unit you rented. Someone must have framed me. Your fingerprints were on the rental contract. I must have signed something Amanda gave me without knowing what it was. Your DNA was found under Claire's fingernails. We had an argument earlier that week. She may have scratched me then. The medical examiner testified those skin cells were fresh from the very night she died. You searched online for how long does life insurance pay out 3 weeks before your wife died. That was professional research. I'm a financial advisor. Name one client you advise about life insurance that specific month. Silence. Carol's voice remained level, but the pressure was building. You recruited 12 people into a fraudulent investment scheme and earned $95,000 in commission. You made that money by lying to vulnerable people. Then you gambled it all away. Kevin was unraveling. Carol's voice turned sharp. Your daughter testified. She heard you say I'm sorry right before her mother stopped breathing. Is Sophie lying? She was confused. She's just a child. Mr. Webb. Carol leaned in. You saw your wife as a final score to fix your debts. $500,000 to make all your problems disappear. And that's when Marcus exploded. She should have helped me. We were married. That money was mine too. She owed me. He stopped mid-sentence, realizing what he'd just said. The courtroom erupted in gasps. Judge Morrison banged her gavel, but the damage was done. In front of 12 jurors, Marcus Webb had just admitted exactly what he'd seen Claire as. Not a wife, not a mother, not a person. An obstacle. Stay right here. Part 5 is the ending you've been waiting for. The verdict, the sentencing, and the life Sophie and I have built together since. You have come this far. You need to hear how it ends. Closing arguments on day 8 of the trial. The climax of a year of fighting, gathering evidence, and refusing to let my daughter's death go unanswered. Carol Bennett stood at the center of the courtroom, her voice ringing out clearly in the silent space. Marcus Webb planned to murder his wife for 2 months. He recruited an accomplice. He researched the insurance payouts. He stood in that living room and took away Claire Hayes' last breath. Then he abandoned his 10-year-old daughter alone, because going back to check on her would have been inconvenient. $500,000. That's the price he put on Claire's life. Don't let him get away with it. Gerald Hamlin rose and adjusted his tie. Marcus Webb is guilty of poor judgment, of debt, of trusting the wrong woman. But premeditated murder? The evidence isn't there. Chelsea Parker is the real killer. She manipulated Marcus and then cut a deal to blame him. There's reasonable doubt. You must acquit. I watched the jury's faces. Hard to read. Some seemed decided, others still uncertain. Judge Morrison struck her gavel. I'm allowing Mr. Robert Hayes to address the court. I stepped to the front, hands trembling, looking at the jury and then at Marcus. My name is Robert Hayes. Claire was my only daughter. For 34 years, she was the center of my world. Marcus Webb didn't just take her life. He destroyed my granddaughter's childhood. He left a 10-year-old child to waste away alone in a closet for 7 days, thinking she'd been abandoned by everyone she loved. My voice broke. Claire was a nurse. She spent her entire life saving people, healing them, and the person she trusted most ended that life for insurance money. I looked straight into Marcus's eyes. You won't escape this. Not while I'm breathing. And Claire, she wasn't just a victim. She was a mother who loved her child so fiercely that she taught her daughter how to survive even when she herself couldn't. She hid food. She rehearsed instructions. She made plans for a future she prayed would never come. That is her legacy, not how she died, but the love she left behind in that little girl. I sat down. Tears were falling. Several jurors were crying too. The jury was dismissed at 2 p.m. to deliberate. I waited with Diana in the courthouse hallway while Sophie stayed home with Emma. The hours crawled. 3 o'clock, 4, 5, 6. The worry built with every passing minute. What if they don't believe us? Detective Rivera sat with me for a while. They believe us, he said quietly. I saw their faces when Marcus testified, when Sophie spoke. They saw the truth. At 8 o'clock in the evening, the jury sent word. They had a verdict. Everyone returned to the courtroom. My heart hammered, so hard I could barely hear anything else. Has the jury reached a verdict? The foreperson, a woman in her 50s, stood. We have, Your Honor, in the case of the state of Tennessee versus Marcus Webb, on the charge of premeditated murder resulting in death, how do you find? Her voice rang out clearly into the stunned silence. We find the defendant guilty. The courtroom erupted. Judge Morrison continued through the remaining charges. Conspiracy, guilty. Child endangerment, guilty. All counts guilty. I closed my eyes. Tears of relief poured down my face, and I didn't stop them. I didn't try to hold any of it back. For the first time since this nightmare began, I let myself fall apart just a little right there in that courtroom pew, because my daughter's life had mattered. It had been seen. It had been counted. Marcus's face showed shock, then denial, then fury. His lawyer immediately moved for appeal. Denied. 2 weeks later, I returned to that courtroom for sentencing. Judge Morrison's voice was steady and clear. Marcus Webb, you've been found guilty by a jury of taking the life of your wife, Claire Hayes, in a calculated, premeditated act for financial gain. You have shown no remorse. You left your daughter to die alone. You manipulated everyone around you. This court sentences you to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Marcus exploded. This is wrong. I didn't. Security officers restrained him, dragging him from the courtroom as he screamed. He looked back one last time before the door closed behind him. I didn't look away. I wanted him to see that justice had won. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, microphones thrust in my face. Mr. Hayes, how do you feel? I didn't answer. Didn't need to. I walked past all of them to where Diana waited with Sophie, my granddaughter, our granddaughter now. She ran into my arms. Is it over, Grandpa? Yes, sweetheart. I held her tight, my whole body shaking with relief and grief all at once. It's over. He can never hurt anyone again. She buried her head in my shoulder. Can we go home? Not back to Tennessee where I used to live alone. Not Claire's empty house. Home, wherever Sophie and I would build a life together. Yes, I whispered. Let's go home. Engagement break. Tell me in the comments. And if you've dealt with something similar, share your story. You're not alone. Subscribe for more stories about standing your ground and reclaiming your life. 6 months after Marcus was sentenced to life in prison, people still ask me how you move forward after something like that. The answer is never simple. You don't move on from losing a child. You learn to carry it differently. You find new reasons to wake up each morning. For me, that reason has a name. Sophie. We built a new life together in Tennessee. I renovated my house for her, painted her bedroom soft blue, installed shelves for her books and drawings. She started 5th grade at the local elementary school. Her best friend is Emma, Diana's daughter. Every Saturday, they take art classes together. Ha! I remember the first Saturday they came home covered in paint from their elbows to their foreheads, laughing so hard they could barely breathe. I stood in the kitchen watching them and felt something I hadn't felt in a year. Something warm moving through the grief. Something that felt impossibly like joy. Sophie still has nightmares sometimes. The therapist says that's normal, that healing isn't a straight line. Some mornings she wakes up and cries for her mother, and I sit on the edge of her bed and just hold her hand and let her cry as long as she needs. There are no words for those mornings. No words that are enough. So I just stay. That's all I know how to do. Stay. But she laughs more now. Sophie laughs more. She has her mother's laugh. That big, full laugh that starts somewhere deep and fills the whole room. Every time I hear it, it breaks my heart a little and heals it a little at the same time. One Saturday morning in the garage, I found myself teaching Sophie the same way I taught Claire a decade before. She sat on a wooden stool, small hands covered in grease, face scrunched in concentration, studying the old lamp we were fixing together. This blue wire connects to the neutral, I explained. She looked up. See, because everything needs a path to return to, right? I smiled through the ache in my chest. Exactly, sweetheart. You sound just like your mom. Is that okay? That's the best thing you could possibly be. We worked in silence for a while. Then she asked, Grandpa, why does Miss Diana help us so much? She didn't have to. I set down my tools. Because your mother loved people so well. Sweetheart, she took care of Diana when Diana was going through hard times. She was always there for everyone. And when you love people well, they love you back. That current keeps flowing long after you're gone. Sophie frowned. But Mom's gone. How can they still love her? Love doesn't disappear when someone dies. It just keeps flowing through everyone who's connected to the person you lost. Like a circuit that never fully closes. Her face brightened. So we're all connected. Like wires. Exactly like wires. Later that week, I visited Claire's grave alone. The small cemetery was quiet, peaceful. I sat beside the headstone, tracing her name. I got justice for you, baby girl. I whispered, Marcus will spend the rest of his life in a cell. I hope it haunts him every single day. My voice cracked. Sophie's doing okay. She's strong, just like you. I'm teaching her electrical work. She's good at it. Smart, just like her mother. She has your laugh. Claire, every time I hear it, I want to cry, and I want to smile at the same time. I miss you every single day, but I'm taking care of her. I promise you that. People ask how I keep going. The answer is simple. I have to. For Sophie, for Claire's memory. Marcus took my daughter, but he couldn't take our love. He couldn't take our family. He couldn't take our hope. The pain doesn't disappear. You just learn to carry it differently. We talk about Claire openly now, Sophie and I, about the skilled nurse, the loving mother, the woman who taught her child how to survive even when she couldn't survive herself. We talk about her laugh, her terrible jokes, the way she'd hum while cooking and not realize she was doing it. We talk about all of it, because that's how she stays alive in this house. Every Friday at 6 o'clock, I still pause. I still expect the phone to ring. Of course it doesn't. But sometimes when Sophie is laughing in the next room, or showing me something she built, or asking me a question that sounds exactly like something Claire would have asked at that age, I feel her. In the sunlight through the garage window. In the warmth around Diana's dinner table. In the connections that death cannot sever, no matter how hard it tries. Back in the garage that afternoon, Sophie finished wiring the lamp. She plugged it in and flipped the switch. Light flooded the workspace. I did it. It works, she shouted, and that laugh came bursting out of her like something that had been waiting all year to escape. You certainly did, sweetheart. I pulled her into a hug and held her there a long time. Your mom would be so incredibly proud of you. She wrapped her arms around me. I love you, Grandpa. I love you too, Sophie. Always, no matter what. And to you, if you've listened to the story all the way to the end, thank you. Thank you for staying. Thank you for bearing witness to Claire's life and to Sophie's courage. I spent a year chasing justice for my daughter, and I got it. Marcus Webb sits in a prison cell for the rest of his life. But if I could go back, I would tell myself one thing. Trust your instincts sooner. The signs were there. The uncomfortable feeling at that wedding. The way Marcus's eyes shifted when he talked about money. The tension in Claire's voice during those last few Friday calls. I saw them all. I told myself I was being paranoid, overprotective. Don't be like me. Don't wait until it's too late. Evil doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it wears a charming smile and calls you Dad. And to Claire, wherever you are, sweetheart, that lamp in the garage is glowing because of you. Everything connects, just like you always knew it did. You just have to trace it back to the source. And the source always was love,